AITA for yelling at a kid for crawling under my table at a restaurant? My friend Jack and I, after a long stressful week, like to go to the local pizza place. It's not fine dining by any stretch of the imagination, but there are booths and tables of people sitting down. A large table near us of like 10 people, a few couples and bunch of small kids between like 4 and 8, and the kids are running around the restaurant being loud while the adults are drinking wine and eating their pizza. I ignore the commotion for like 20 minutes when suddenly, I feel like a hand on my leg and one of the little kids is crawling under Jack and my table. I wasn't thinking and snapped at the kid, and said, "Get away from our table." And the kid ran away and burst into tears. One of the parents at the other table came over and started tearing into me about how cranky and mean I was and how dare yell at her kid, who was just playing. Meanwhile, her and the other middle-aged 40-something parents are letting their kids run amok and be loud and obnoxious while my friend and I are trying to enjoy a night out. I ripped her a new one and said, "How entitled do you need to be to think it's okay to let your kids just crawl under other people's tables?" She called me an AmItheAsshole and walked away in a huff. AITA for refusing to eat a smash cake. Yesterday was my nephew's first birthday, and my sister and Bill had a little get-together at their house. When it was time for cake, they brought out my nephew's smash cake, exactly what it sounds, a cake for the baby to smash up and get icing all over themselves for cute pictures or whatever. I kind of imagined that it would be the size of a big cupcake, but they brought out a regular-sized round birthday cake. I just kind of figured they splurged and still expected the cake to just be for him to play around with. But after my nephew had gone at this cake with his bare hands and stuck his whole face in it, my sister started scooping up the mangled remains and distributing servings to everyone, just a handful of family members. And everyone else was actually eating it. I declined because, seriously? I didn't want to eat something that has had a baby's grubby hands and body all over it, and I was surprised that anyone else did. My sister insisted I take a portion and I said, "Really? No, that's gross." Now, I probably wouldn't have used the word gross if I wasn't on the spot, but I was not at all prepared to have to politely decline to eat baby spit. My sister was very hurt by that and told Meliter, on a phone call that I thought was way longer than it needed to be for the severity of the infraction, that she thought I was being extremely judgmental, that it wasn't a big deal, we're all family, don't participate if I really don't want Tobit, don't call her gross, etc. AITA for telling my sister her haircut isn't some big achievement. My dad died unexpectedly and relatively young. My youngest sister was 3 at the time. Her hair was a lot like his. It's super curly. Because of Thisor, Mom did a lot to maintain it. Growing up, Mom would spend hours on my sister's hair, and each morning was dedicated to the two of them in bathroom, with my sister screaming and crying because brushing through it was long and unpleasant. Up until she was 13, Mom insisted on washing and styling my sister's hair. She never leather cut it or dye it. When someone suggested getting it trimmed, they were kicked out of the house. I won't lie, Mom was controlling at times, but I thought we all knew it was because of grief and memory of our dad. Well, Mom died, and the first thing my sister did was get her hair chopped incredibly short and dyed. She sent myself and my siblings a picture of her new haircut, with the caption, "Sharon, our mom, always said I was going to grow my hair down to my UTT, not anymore." I thought it was my sister's way of grieving, but now she mentions it a lot, like asking how do I think Mom would be if she saw my hair this short. I told her after the 5th comment to stop acting like her haircut was a big achievement. It's not. Millions of people get haircuts, and she should know her hair was important to Mom because it reminded her of Dad. She said she wasn't supposed to be Sharon's doll or a replacement of their dad. She should have been her own person, and if I can't respect that, she doesn't need me in her life. AITA? AITA for putting meat in a tofu dish? This happened at a potluck. I brought a dish that was tofu stir-fried with minced pork, ginger and spring onions. Similar to mapo tofu but not spicy. Everything was fine except when someone asked me if my dish was halal. I said no, it has pork. That's when Jan overheard and freaked out that she ate meat. And it turns out a lot of other vegetarians sat my dish assuming it was vegetarian. For the rest of the party, I've had so many people, including non-vegetarians, tell me I'm an for putting meat in a vegetarian dish. But this Isa dish I grew up with, tofu for me is just an ingredient, not strictly a meat substitute. Also, no one asked me if my dish was vegetarian, so am I the here or are people just overreacting? Edit. Since so many people are asking. Nothing was labeled. I just left the dish on the buffet table along with the rest of the dishes. There were many other meat dishes. About 20 people at the party, 4 were vegetarian. No one asked about my dish except for the person asking if it was halal. AITA for telling my teacher, "Would you rather I bled on your white chair, in front of the class?" I-14F got my period in class. We weren't doing anything important, so I asked to leave for the restroom. For context, this teacher is known for being very irritable. He refused, so I told him I had a genuine need to go, but he mocked me, saying, "Oh, so you have to go in front of the class?" I asked again calmly and he again said no. At this point the room was silent, so I got stressed under the pressure. I was being laughed at, and I snapped, "Well, would you rather I bled all over your white chair?" He was visibly angry but let me go. When I got back to class he seemed annoyed still, so I'm not sure if I overreacted. AITA for asking my roommates to remove their dildos from the bathroom mirror in a way that was not kind. Last night one of my 23F roommates, 23M, 28F, washed their dildos in the bathroom sink and suctioned them onto the mirror to dry. I used the bathroom shortly after, and when I came out, I knocked on their door. They said, "Who is it?" And I said, "Get your dildos off the bathroom mirror," and walked away. I went to bed later that night. The following morning both dildos were still stuck to the mirror when I walked in, and again I told them to get their dildos out of the bathroom. They told me I need to ask them kindly instead of demanding, and I said that I should have to ask at all. We got into an argument about it. I'm worried that I may be the asshole BC. Yeah, I definitely didn't kindly ask, but it's not like I was mean or unkind either. As I stated above, I feel like I shouldn't have to ask at all for my roommates to not leave their dildos in the common area, and the insistence that I ask them kindly feels like them trying to derail from my request for dildos to not be left in the common area. AITA for asking my husband to file a police report against my deceased Phil. My husband, M30, and I, F27, are preparing to buy your first home. We both work full-time, making above minimum wage, but not enough that either ofus can get a home with our single income. Yesterday, in a conversation with the bank, we were informed that there are 4 collections accounts in my husband's name, all going back to 2018. Power, internet, and 2 credit cards. After a few hours, we were able to link each of these accounts to his father's previous address. The bill is just shy of $6,000. After multiple conversations, we have realized the only way to clear this debt from causing issues to his credit rating is to file a police report for fraud. His father died suddenly last September, and my husband doesn't want to tarnish his father's name and is afraid his family will look down on him for doing this. He is on the fence of how this will look if it gets out. I look at it differently. We took a massive hit paying for the funeral. Phil had no money and no life insurance. I know it's his dad, but we will be years recovering from the implications of this. None of the recovery agencies are willing to give us a bill paid in full, and even if we do pay this debt, we will lose the down payment we have busted our behinds to raise again over the past 7 months. We aren't even close to having the buying power we had last September because we only saved about half of our original down payment. So, AITA for asking him to make the police report. It's not an ideal situation, but how much more can I let his father's poor financial decision in life impact our future, especially now that he's gone? Clarification for some of the most repeated questions. As some of you might have gathered, yes, my husband has heritage reasons for trying to honor his father even in death. He is also a junior. He is an only child and was raised only by his mother. His father did not sign his birth certificate, but was a large part of his life. His father's estate is gone to probate court to be settled. Because of his accent and his dislike for confrontation, my husband actually had me speak to everyone yesterday. Collection agencies did not have our address or his phone number, which is why we have not even hounded. Everyone I spoke to has told me they have had no success in reaching him since they acquired the debt. So no, he wasn't hiding something. He didn't know. We have had complications with the credit bureau for the last 3 years trying to access my husband's credit report. We have had to go to the police station and show several pieces of ID, send in letters to confirm his identity. It took the banks to get us to do everything again to resolve the issue. Originally, we thought it was because there was no activity on his credit report. Now we know that at least one account used his father's SSN with my husband's DOB and created issues. Finally, for those people who want to know what the price of my bad feelings are, I just paid $18,000 out of pocket to make sure this man wasn't buried in a cardboard box. I loved my Phil, and had he told us about his financial struggles, we would have helped him. This isn't even about the money. Yesterday, I asked every agency if they would just put paid in full next to the bill and I would pay it off. I'll save the money again. They wouldn't take the collections off his credit score. It's not 6 months worth saving that I'm concerned about. It's 3 to 5 years that record can stick to his account, which will stop us from purchasing any time in the near future. Finally, my husband needed a minute, but he called me today at lunch and said he has to do what is right for our future. He is going forward with the fraud report this evening. Thank you all for the reassurance. Folded hands heart.